Hey guys, just Vice here. So now that you've made the decision to invest, there are a couple of things that I'd like to go through so that you can avoid making some common mistakes and make sure that your money is working as efficiently as it possibly can. Trends. So we've all seen the exponential growth of the Tesla stock and then the exponential growth of the Apple stock, and this wasn't necessarily the first time that something like this happened. And it may have been great for investors as they saw their money double, triple, and even quadruple sometimes. But on the other hand, there is an example of an industry, for example, in Canada that was recently legalized, wink wink nudge nudge. What happened there? So not all trends are necessarily positive because it can go either way. You want to make sure that you're not just following the crowd without a fear of missing out, and that you're actually making logical decisions because your money is only going to work as well as your research goes. So sometimes there are examples of industries that have tanked and stocks that have tanked and have never made a strengthened recovery. And at these points, you may be thinking, okay, I'm gonna hold on to it a little longer, I'm gonna break even, I'm gonna make a bit of money. But this is something that's better known as the sunk cost fallacy. This is to the point where you've started to contribute to something over and over and over again, where you're now invested beyond the point where it doesn't necessarily make sense anymore. Now, going along this route doesn't always work the best. Looking at the Cineplex example, for instance. Cineplex's stock was trending as high as $34 back in January when there were reports of a buyout. But as soon as the illness hit, the stock tanked. And some investors were able to pull out when it was perfect to do so. They were able to make a couple of dollars, and some are still unfortunately holding on to their stocks. I wonder who. But you want to make sure you know when it's time to pull out your money and call it a loss and take that money and invest it elsewhere. Knowing how much you can afford to invest. So as a university student or someone that's a little bit on a tighter budget, you may not have as much money to put forward as for investing purposes. Whereas if you have a couple extra $1,000s a month in disposable income, you may be more willing to take on a risk and invest your money more long term. That being said, you want to ensure that you're able to afford making these decisions. Look at how much money you make, how much money you spend, and how much money you have in excess of that, and think about how much it makes sense to go ahead and invest. So you always want to make sure you're ready and aware of how much money you're actually able to afford investing, and that you don't over contribute to the point where you don't have enough liquid currency in the event of an emergency, or to the point where you put way too much money into your portfolios in that it's all tied up and you don't know how to pull it out. Capitalizing on crashes. So back in 2008, when everyone was panic selling and we didn't know what was going on, some people were looking at this as an opportunity to buy their stocks. These were times when stocks were hitting record low prices, and these investors were able to pick up many stocks for pennies on the dollar. And now similarly, given everything that's been going on with the illness, there's been a lot of fluctuations in the market. So earlier this year, when everything was dipping, there were many people panic selling and it wasn't necessarily the greatest time. But because I was able to look at this as an opportunity to buy, I was able to pick up some stocks at record low prices and have since been able to ride the curve. Looking at crashes as an opportunity rather than something that's unfortunate might help you discipline yourself on a long-term strategy. So the way that I looked at it is whatever went down must eventually come back up. And so looking at crashes as an opportunity allows you to make a lot better decisions if you can afford to do so. You want to ensure that the information that you're getting, which is driving your investment decisions, is free of bias and that you're aware of any bias that may exist. Given that certain news outlets are often described as such, you want to make sure that your money is working as best as it can for you. Now, to avoid some of these biases and all of that information, it's best to get as much research as you can. Now, you may see one headline put 3 different ways on multiple outlets, but the best way for that to work in your favor is being consciously aware of their bias and finding out as much information as possible before making a financial decision. If you're someone that still gets your news from WhatsApp or your local auntie network or whatever your friends tell you, it might be a little smarter not to work with money, and you might want to rely on some more credible resources. So thanks again for checking out today's video. I hope that next time you guys make any sort of financial decisions, you'll be aware of any sort of biases that may exist, any sort of trends that you might be blindly following, and ways that you can sort of determine whether or not it makes financial sense for you to make that decision. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please do give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for next time, as I'll be doing a couple of more videos like this, and let me know in the comments below if you had any suggestions. See ya!